In the heart of a bustling Nigerian city lived a family with everything money could buy. But sometimes, the greatest wealth becomes the greatest weakness. This is the story of Charity Okori, a girl who had everything except humility. Mr. and Mrs. Okori sat on the edge of their bed, staring into the city lights. The weight of a difficult decision hung in the air. Losing their daughter to pride and laziness, one solution stood clear: boarding school. Mrs. Okori whispered, "She will hate us." Mr. Okori sighed. "She might learn. And if she doesn't, we will have failed her." She slept peacefully that night, not knowing her comfort was about to be challenged. The next morning, Charity woke up cheerful, humming as she brushed her teeth. She came downstairs late as usual, scrolling through her phone. "Mommy, what's for breakfast?" Mrs. Okori watched her closely. The girl looked so innocent, so careless. Later that evening, both parents sat upright with serious faces. Charity sensed the tension. "Why do you both look like this?" Mr. Okori spoke firmly. "Charity, we have decided that you will be going to a boarding school next term." The words hung in the air like smoke. Charity's face changed from confusion to disbelief. Charity laughed nervously. "Very funny, you scared me for nothing." Mrs. Okori shook her head. "We are not joking." Charity's smile faded instantly. "What do you mean, boarding school?" "A good one, with discipline." "No. I'm not going anywhere. You can't do this to me. I'm not a village girl." That sentence cut deep. Charity stormed out and locked herself in her room, crying loudly, throwing things around. That night, the house was restless. Days later, Mrs. Okori tried to hug her gently. "Sometimes love looks like pain," she whispered. Charity pushed her away bitterly. "I hate you." Those words hit Mrs. Okori like stones, heavy and painful. Preparations began quietly. The school chosen was known far and wide, Sapple House Boarding School, with strong rules and a reputation that scared even stubborn children. On departure day, Charity stepped out of the car and froze. The buildings were tall, old, and serious. Students walked in straight lines. No noise. No laughter. Fear crept into her chest. Mrs. Oformanta did not raise her voice, yet every word landed with weight. Her wrapper was neatly tied, her blouse simple, her hair covered. Nothing looked flashy, yet everything commanded attention. "Carry your box properly." Charity muttered, "They should have given us a trolley." Mrs. Oformanta turned slowly. "What did you say?" "Nothing." "Good, because this is not a hotel. This is Sapple House." Inside, everything was arranged perfectly. Beds in perfect rows, trunks at the foot of each bed. Not a single shoe out of line. Mrs. Oformanta pointed to a bed near the door. "That is yours." "Why near the door?" "So you learn to wake up fast. Change into your housewear. Assembly starts in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. At home she took her time. Here, time seemed to run. Days passed and the shock grew deeper. Charity was given duties: sweeping, washing plates, arranging beds. The first time she was told to sweep, she laughed. "You must be joking." The prefect smiled sadly. "I'm not." Charity refused. That was her first offense. Mrs. Oformanta called her aside. "Why didn't you sweep?" "I don't do that." "You will." She was punished with extra duties. No excuses. Charity cried that night, quietly so others wouldn't hear. She missed her bed, her freedom, being obeyed. She tried her old tricks, talking back, rolling her eyes, complaining loudly. None worked. One afternoon she insulted a junior student. Mrs. Oformanta appeared instantly. "Apologize." Charity refused. That earned her the toughest punishment yet. Weeks turned to months. Slowly, things began to change. Charity learned to make her bed, wash clothes, wake early. One rainy evening, she fell sick with fever. Mrs. Oformanta personally brought her food. Eat, she said gently. Charity looked up, confused. You care. Mrs. Oformanta smiled faintly. Discipline without care is cruelty. Tears filled Charity's eyes. From that day, her heart softened. By second term, Charity was improving. But not everyone was happy. A senior named Blessing was jealous of the respect Charity was earning. Blessing had enjoyed being feared. One day, Blessing cornered her. You think you're special now? Charity took a deep breath. I'm just trying to do better. Blessing mocked her, then poured water on Charity's bed. The old Charity would have fought. But this time she stood still, hands shaking but voice calm. When called before Mrs. Oformanta, Charity surprised everyone. I don't know why she's angry, but I forgive her. Blessing broke down crying, revealing the pressure and jealousy she felt. Charity learned that day that kindness could disarm even the hardest heart. Something shifted inside her permanently. As years passed, Charity's academic performance improved because she became consistent. On prize-giving day, she was called for academic improvement and leadership. She looked at Mrs. Oformanta, who nodded once with quiet pride. After the ceremony, Mrs. Oformanta told her, hard work speaks. Thank you, Ma, Charity replied humbly. No, Mrs. Oformanta said. Thank yourself. That night, Charity sat alone and wrote a letter to her parents. Her hand trembled as the words poured out. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry for the words I said, the pain I caused. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for loving me enough to let me go. I understand now. I finally understand. By her final year, Charity was a role model. When asked to give a character talk to new students, she spoke from the heart. I wasn't always like this. I learned the hard way that character matters more than comfort. After graduation, she returned home. She no longer walked in like a queen. She helped in the kitchen, treated staff with respect. Her parents watched, quietly thanking God. Years later, Charity returned to Sapple House as a guest speaker. She stood at the gate and smiled, remembering the fear, the tears, the growth. Everything looked the same, yet everything felt different. The buildings that once intimidated her now felt like home. The compound that once felt like prison now felt like the place where she found herself. Mrs. Oformanta, slower now but still strong, walked toward her with a warm smile. You came back. I had to, Charity replied with emotion. You changed my life. Mrs. Oformanta shook her head gently. No, you chose to change. They sat together under a tree, talking quietly like old friends, two women connected across time by transformation. That evening, Charity stood before the students and shared her truth. Discipline is not punishment, she said clearly. It's direction. It's the bridge between who you are and who you're meant to become. Don't resist the process. Embrace it. Your future self will thank you. The students listened, some with tears, some with hope, all with attention. Her story spread because it was real, because it was honest. Today, Charity mentors young girls from broken homes, teaching them the same lessons she learned. In her home life, 3 girls who remind her of who she used to be. She sees their pride, their resistance, their pain. And with patience, she guides them toward transformation. No one is beyond growth, she tells them. No one is beyond redemption. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that save us. Sometimes love looks like pain. Charity sits under the tree with Mrs. Oformanta one last time, 2 souls connected by one eternal truth: character matters more than comfort. And discipline is not your enemy. It's your greatest friend. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, you are not defined by where you start, but by where you choose to go. Subscribe for more stories that teach, inspire, and transform lives.